My best friend's partner destroyed our 7-year friendship overnight, accused me of things that never happened, ruining his birthday, and now my best friend won't even open my messages. All because of a gift and a couch seat? Tim just had a milestone birthday, and because he's been my best friend for 7 years, missing it wasn't even a possibility in my mind. Tim isn't just a friend. He's the person I talk to about everything, from the stupid memes we send each other at midnight to the heavy moments where life feels too big to breathe. Some weeks we talk every single day. Other weeks we'll spend 3 or more hours on the phone, just hanging out virtually because distance makes real hangouts rare. We've traveled to see each other multiple times a year, even when money was tight. It's one of those friendships that feels effortless and grounding, the kind you don't stumble across often in life. For the last 2 years or so, Tim has been dating Andy. My girlfriend Jessie and I have spent a decent amount of time with both of them, a lesbian and a gay couple navigating life, humor, relationships, all of it. Andy always seemed polite, maybe a little more reserved than Tim, but nothing that ever set off alarm bells. Then Andy decided to plan this big secret birthday trip for Tim. He invited all of Tim's friends, most of whom I hadn't met, and built this elaborate itinerary. 2 days in the city with Tim, a few days in a mountain Airbnb with everyone, then back to the city for 2 more days. Jessie and I immediately offered to get our own Airbnb for the first city portion, because Tim and I have always joked, we need at least a week's notice for guests, minimum. It's our running bit. We're both homebodies who stress clean when people visit. But Andy insisted we stay with Tim. He brushed off the idea of us getting a separate place. When I reminded him about the week minimum thing, he actually agreed it made sense, and told Tim a week in advance. The timing wasn't ideal, though, because Tim had been in a depressive slump. He kept telling me his place was a disaster, that he wasn't feeling like himself, that the idea of hosting made him anxious. But once he knew Jessie and I were coming, it sparked something in him. He started cleaning, organizing, planning. It was the most animated he'd sounded in weeks. He said he finally had something to look forward to. Then, a few days before the trip, the government shutdown started destroying flights. Cancellations everywhere, delays piling up, chaos at the airports. I was spiraling about it and texting Tim constantly, sending him updates, news articles, TikToks from stranded travelers. I told him if worst came to worst, we'd just drive the 24 hours. I meant it, we were going to be there no matter what. Tim didn't even pause before helping me figure out logistics. He mapped out halfway points where Jessie and I could stay if we drove. He told me which highways were the safest, which towns had cheap motels, which stretches of road were miserable at night. He's done multiple cross-country drives, so hearing his reassurance made the idea of driving less terrifying. We both continued updating each other obsessively, like we were tracking some dramatic unfolding situation together. I didn't realize that behind the scenes, tensions were brewing between him and Andy, tensions I wasn't causing but apparently wasn't helping either. I didn't know that Andy was feeling overshadowed or insecure or irritated by how much Tim and I were communicating about the trip. I didn't know that Tim's excitement about seeing me had created a pressure cooker situation in their relationship. At the time, everything felt normal on my end. All I knew was this: it was Tim's milestone birthday, and I loved him. I loved him in that fierce, loyal, chosen family kind of way. Jessie loved him too. We were going to show up, no matter what mode of transportation we had to use. I didn't care if we had to fly, drive, crawl, or cling to the underside of a semi-truck Fast and Furious style. We were getting there. 2 days before we were supposed to fly out, I got a message from Andy that completely blindsided me. Out of nowhere, he tells me it wasn't Tim's job to figure out how Jessie and I were going to get there, and that it wasn't fair that I put it all on him. He added that these were not the vibes I wanted for Tim's birthday week. The message felt cold, sharp, almost parental, like I'd been scolded for something I didn't even know I'd done wrong. I sat there staring at my phone thinking, what? Tim and I had talked constantly that week, and our conversations weren't just about flights. We talked about music and depression, about his job and my stress, about the trip, about the stupid reality show we always roast together. If anything, our talks had made him sound more excited than he'd been in months. So I messaged Tim directly, worried I had somehow caused him anxiety without realizing. He replied with his usual casual, "Yeah, everything's fine." I apologized sincerely because if I had added any stress to his life, even unintentionally, I wanted to own that. And then he hit me with something that felt strange. I guess I didn't realize it gave me anxiety until I talked to my friend Rob. Rob, a guy I'd never met who was invited to the mountain trip. Suddenly, I could feel a shift, like someone I didn't know had formed an opinion about me before I even showed up. I tried not to overthink it, but the comment lodged itself in my brain like a splinter. Why did Tim need Rob to interpret his own feelings? Why did Andy insert himself so aggressively? Why didn't Tim bring his concerns to me directly if something was wrong? But I pushed all of that aside, because this was Tim's birthday. And nothing, not flight delays, not stress, not weird comments from strangers, was going to keep me from showing up for him. We eventually got a flight and made it to the city where Tim and Andy live. We stayed with Tim, like Andy insisted. And honestly, once we were all together, everything felt amazing. The tension evaporated, or at least I ignored it. The Airbnb in the mountains was like something out of a movie. Everyone drank, smoked, lounged in the hot tub under the cold sky. We blasted music videos in the living room for hours. We laughed until our voices were hoarse. And I kept thinking, this is what I came here for. This is the Tim I love. This is us. After the mountain trip, we spent 2 more days in the city with Tim, just the 4 of us. We drove around, took photos, visited all of his favorite restaurants and cafes. Jesse and I paid for everything so Tim wouldn't have to think about money on his birthday. We covered meals, gas, coffee runs, entrance fees, everything. It wasn't even a question. We wanted him to feel celebrated. And honestly, we had already put in so much to make this trip work. Flights, time off work, our share of the Airbnb, all the food and events in the city. But then there was also the fact that once we arrived at the Airbnb, we were the ones who bought all the liquor and did the entire store run for everyone. We didn't even think twice, we just went. And on top of that, Jesse and I sent Andy an extra $150 just in case he needed anything else covered. We wanted to make sure nobody was stressed about money. We had zero interest in being a burden. After that, the trip wrapped up. 6 days total, 2 city days, 2 mountain Airbnb days, and 2 more city days before we flew home. It felt like a full circle of chaos and joy and reconnection. We met new people we genuinely liked. We made memories that felt warm and real in the moment. Everyone kept saying what a great time they were having. Even Tim said it multiple times. So when Jesse and I got back home, we were exhausted but happy. I really believed we had done everything we could to make the trip special for him. And because Tim's actual birthday hadn't arrived yet, I wanted something to give him that day, too. So I ordered a really nice pair of binoculars, something he could use for hikes, bird watching, road trips, whatever. Something thoughtful and personal. They were still en route when everything blew up. Jessie, meanwhile, ordered this little car accessory she swears by, a small trash holder clip for the back of a seat. Practical. Simple. She didn't even tell me she ordered it for Tim. She just figured it was a helpful little thing she uses daily. In her mind, it wasn't a gift. It was just a, hey, this thing improved my car. Maybe you'll like it too. But apparently Tim did not take it that way. When we got home, I opened my phone to a message from Andy. And he was pissed. Not annoyed, pissed. He said Tim had been up all night crying about the gift. Crying? Over a trash holder. Andy said that we must think Tim is trash. And that Tim even cried to his dad about it. I honestly sat there in disbelief. Jessie felt absolutely horrible and immediately messaged Tim apologizing. She told him directly that it wasn't meant as anything insulting. Jessie is not the type of person to make some subtle dig at someone. She doesn't do passive-aggressive. She barely even does aggressive-aggressive. She genuinely just thought it was a practical, helpful item because her own car felt cleaner with it. That's it. I tried reassuring Andy, too, telling him it wasn't the birthday gift. That the real gift, those expensive binoculars, was still on the way. And his response? You might as well send a broom and a dustpan. At that point, I honestly didn't know what else to say. I felt like anything I said would be twisted. The whole situation escalated into some bizarre interpretation I didn't even know was possible. But then Andy pivoted and brought up something else, that the party didn't live up to his expectations. That he and Tim had been feeling a type of way. Which made absolutely zero sense given everything we had heard during the trip. Everyone said they had fun. Tim himself said it multiple times. He even hugged me at the Airbnb and said he was glad I came. So hearing, after the fact, that somehow the party wasn't good enough felt like I'd stepped into some alternate world. According to Andy, one of the big issues was that I didn't offer Tim a seat on the couch at the Airbnb and that he was apparently just standing there. First, this was at like 2 a.m. We were all drunk and high and laughing and moving around. There's video proof, literal recordings, of me dancing in the living room, Not sitting, not parked on a couch spot. People were sprawled everywhere. I wasn't even near the couch for most of the night. So I asked the obvious. Are you mad at everyone else who was sitting on the couch? And Andy said no. That because I'm Tim's best friend, it mattered more that I didn't offer him the spot. I just stared at that message thinking, what on earth are you talking about? The mental gymnastics felt unreal. And for the record, I was the first person asleep every night. I'm a lightweight. I can't hang. I barely lasted past 1 a.m. the entire trip. I remember clearly seeing Tim on the couch earlier that night, laughing with Rob and another guy. So the idea that he was abandoned, standing alone like some neglected Victorian child, it just wasn't reality. The second issue Andy brought up was that I didn't sit in the front seat with Tim while he was driving. Apparently, that was another sign of me being a bad friend. I genuinely couldn't believe it. Because here's the thing, whenever it was just the three of us, me, Jessie, and Tim, I let Jessie sit up front because she's really tall. Long legs, bad knees, the whole thing. It made sense for her to have the bigger space. No disrespect, no hidden meaning, just practicality. And when Andy was with us, of course I let him sit in the front. That's Tim's partner. I thought I was doing the polite, normal, socially aware thing. But suddenly, in Andy's narrative, this was another major friendship betrayal. So we went from, wow, this trip was amazing, I love you guys, everyone had such a great time, to me being blindsided by a furious message from Andy listing grievances that apparently had been simmering all week. Grievances that were never mentioned during the trip, never hinted at, never discussed. Just dropped on me after I returned home, like a bomb. I was thrown. Completely thrown. I immediately messaged him saying, hey, I'm not sure what's going on, and I'm sorry if I did something to upset you. Please call me when you're ready to talk through everything. He left me on read. Not just for an hour or a day, it's now been almost a week. Radio silence from the person who has been my best friend for 7 years. Instead, I've gotten 2 messages from Andy, both aggressive, both accusatory. He said things like, I don't f*** with this or that, and that I need to learn to be self-aware, as if I'm some clueless, selfish person who bulldozes through people's feelings. It felt like he was speaking for Tim. Like he'd appointed himself spokesperson, judge, jury, executioner. I asked why they couldn't have brought this up during the trip when we were literally face-to-face, talking, laughing, hugging. Andy's response? I was already in charge of so many things. I honestly stared at that message wondering if it was supposed to make sense. He couldn't bring up emotional concerns because he was in charge of so many things. It sounded like an excuse a middle schooler would use. The more I thought about it, the more I felt like I was being gaslit. None of this matched the energy of the actual trip. I have literal videos on my phone of us being goofy in the car during those last 2 city days, me and Tim making stupid jokes, singing off-key, laughing. I have photos from when we went bird watching and walked that beautiful trail. I have memories of the 3 of us sitting at that restaurant Tim loves, stuffing our faces and telling stories. And at the airport, Tim and I hugged each other tight. A long, warm, emotional hug. He said we'd see each other again in the spring. There wasn't a hint of tension. Not a flicker. So, what the hell changed? What am I missing? I understand the practical gift from Jessie wasn't ideal. Sure. Fine. Maybe it hit a nerve. Maybe Tim was already in a sensitive headspace and took it the wrong way. But Jessie sent him a heartfelt apology explaining she meant absolutely nothing negative by it. She even clarified that I didn't know about the gift at all until it arrived. And Tim hasn't even opened that message. Not a word. Not a reaction. Nothing. His birthday is coming up. I feel stuck, paralyzed, honestly. If I say happy birthday, I worry I'll come off as intrusive, like I'm not respecting his space. But if I say nothing, I fear Andy will swoop in with another hostile message accusing me of being careless or cold. It feels like there's no right move, no safe option. And these reasons, the couch, the front seat, a trash bag holder, feel so unbelievably petty. So unlike Tim. These aren't the kinds of things a best friend throws a 7-year relationship away over. It feels like I'm being used as an emotional punching bag for something else going on in their relationship. Like maybe they're struggling, and somehow I became the easiest target. I don't know. I'm confused, hurt, and honestly grieving.